It's pretty close, right? The only difference is that he didn't become world famous in acting. But yeah, having to escape from Cuba and kind of having Castro try and kill him. And really, no matter what, coming at, what did Arnold come at? He came at like 17 to this country, something like that.
Yeah.
Coming to this country at 17, my dad also came around that same age. But being white and being what everyone considers black, especially in the 60s, I just couldn't imagine. And, you know, me and him, we've never really seen eye to eye. But the more that I kind of get into the sport, and even just kind of an adult, but I guess that's the way it works with your parents, right? You only realize what they went through when you get older. Right. But I couldn't imagine if while I'm trying to prep, like if I'm prepping for a show and I have a fight with a girlfriend or just any kind of issue, it throws me off. Like it's just fucking up my diet. I'm maybe missing the gym. I can't even imagine dealing with poverty and racist people like on a level where, because like, the racism that we talk about today with what's going on, it's actually not even 1% of what it was in the 60s. You know, it was almost kind of cool.
I only know like, from what I've read and what I know. Right. I have to agree.
Yeah, I can't imagine when it was almost cool to treat people a certain type of way, you know, and then throw in that he can't even be like taken in to black people because he doesn't speak English.
Yeah, because he's Spanish.
So, right, at least, you know, at least kind of like back then, they would have, you know, their people and take care of them, you know. But yeah, he really didn't have really much. And I can't imagine what he was going through doing that. And then to even want to pursue something like that, like a world renowned, because first he was doing powerlifting.
Right.
And I get that. I get like lifting weights, not to like make it sound like it's not a hard thing to do, but it is a lot more simple. You know, you just work on your PR, you get your weight up to a certain weight, and that's it. It's not kind of like this 24-hour job that you have to do with bodybuilding. It's a completely different lifestyle. So I understand him doing it to get out of Cuba, use that as an escape to go to the Olympics and stuff like that. But yeah, doing bodybuilding, I don't even know how that must have started for him. I know how it did. I know someone came up to him and, you know, that's how it works. Someone comes up to you, hey, you should do a bodybuilding show, etc. But I just don't know how in his mindset when he's working 5 jobs and all that he's thinking, let me work on my rear delts, you know, just random stuff. So I really, no one's going to ever know. That's the crazy thing is that even in his book, you can buy his book and he talks about it, but it's not the same.
No, it's not. And I don't think he gets enough credit. I really don't. As far as being a bodybuilder and as far as where he came from, because I mean, just a little bit of research I was doing last night. He fought in the revolution in Cuba, right?
Right.
When he was only 16. Am I accurate?
Yeah, it was something like that.
And he fought on the side of Batista and lost to Fidel Castro, right? In that war. And his escape was amazing. Do you care to tell that story, or you want me to just regurgitate what I've read?
Well, more or less that, you know, they were supposed to go to the Pan American Games for, because that back then Cuba was competing in the Olympics. There was a while where Cuba wasn't even in the Olympics anymore. So they were going, and then instead of going to, you know, I don't know, like the training camp or wherever they were supposed to go, he tried to escape. He tried to find the embassy.
Yeah.
And he actually had given up. He couldn't find it. And then he saw like a little churro stand and he went to just go get one. And then when he went to get one, he saw the embassy and like booked it and ran for it. But then because he was escaping, all the other athletes were like, man, we're going to escape too. So now it looks like my dad was just this whole orchestrator of this whole escape plan from the beginning, when really he was just going to leave himself.
Right.
So then that's why Castro got mad and thought he orchestrated the whole thing and tried to kill him in Miami. And and it's crazy because, yeah, if Castro didn't try and kill my dad, they would have never put him into protective services and moved him to Chicago, which he therefore
I didn't know that's
right. There's no way a Cuban would ever leave Miami and go to negative 25-degree weather.
Right.
But then, you know, he met my mom, you know, so it's kind of cool.
Okay. And then when he was in Chicago, he was working at a steel mill, right?
Like his first job. Yeah, it was he had a bunch of jobs. It was like a steel mill, and then he worked at like a meat place.
This is what I mean by your father is the definition of genetic freak. from what I read, and correct me if I'm wrong, he was working 10 to 12 hours a day, hard labor. And then he would go to the gym 2 to 3 hours at night. I don't know anybody, and I'm sure back then the dieting wasn't the same and the food and
Of course not.
weren't the same. So here's this man who's working 10, 12 hours, I'm sure breaking his butt, trying to earn a living, and then going to the gym and putting on this extraordinary amount of muscle. Anybody else would wither away.
Yeah, right. You would lose muscle.
Yeah. And then he goes to Chicago in 64.
I don't even know.
I think so.
Exactly. I don't exactly know. Yeah.
Anyway, by 67, he's Mr. Olympia. I mean,
right.
But that's just he. There are, like I said before, like a Phil Heath. There are just certain people that are meant to be bodybuilders and the best of the best. And your dad was clearly one of them. Yeah. Because in those conditions, it's I can't, like you said.
Yeah. But putting on that weight was not easy.
No.
There were a lot of kids in the gym because I'm 45. And there were a lot of young guys in the gym that talked to me about working out and whatever. And I try to give them advice and whatnot. And they say they want to put on muscle. And I try to say, well, you have to eat. And they're like, I do eat. And then they give me an example of what they eat. And they're like, well, I have a bagel and I have eggs. I'm like, no.
I have 3 eggs and a bagel.
And then I always make them watch your video of the types of shakes you used to make. So can you just tell us, in order to get to that 300 pounds, the types of shakes you used to make and how much you used to have to eat back then?
You know what? I don't think that anyone could have realistically stuck with me for more than one day and consume the amount of food I did. The only person who I think might have consumed more than me or comparable to me would be Greg Kovacs, because his wife would basically make the stuff and put it right in front of him and he would have to eat it. He was like a machine. He drank a lot of shakes though, but he ate a lot. He ate a lot of food. And that's why he was 400 pounds. But, I probably at some point, if I wasn't so lazy, I would try to recreate a day of eating for myself. I wouldn't necessarily eat all the food, but if I just prepared it all and put it in front of me and showed everyone what I consumed on a regular basis, no one would believe it. Yeah. Because if I ate eggs, I ate 12 whole eggs. I mean, they went whether they had to go into a blender or they had to go, I had to just cook them and swallow them almost whole, because I would poach them and I would just basically take the plate and just slurp them down my throat, and I didn't care. I did anything I had to get the food down. The shakes, the mash shakes that I made that are notorious were 12 egg whites and 12 whole eggs. I would put them into a plastic Tupperware container. Because somehow I had this thing in my head that I was going to get like salmonella from them, from drinking them raw. It would have been way easier if I didn't. So I would cook them in the microwave for a minute and they would start to turn, like the whites would start to turn like gel-like. They would actually start being like real eggs. And then I would throw those in the blender. So not only were they partially cooked, but they were hot. So I throw 12 hot eggs into the blender. Then I'm putting like a cup of apple juice, a cup of uncooked oats, a packet of Metrex, which was like almost 40 grams of protein there and about 25, 30 grams of carbs. And then I would put, what else did I put in there? I'm trying to think now. Apple juice. I think that was it. And then I had, if you remember at the time, there was like Designer Whey was out. I would put a scoop of Designer Whey. So it had to be at least 75, 80 grams of protein in there. And I would blend this up. And when I blended it, I couldn't put the top on the blender because it was filled. I somehow figured it out. It would fill just to the top, but when it would blend, it would almost go over the top and spill over, but it didn't because I was so perfectly at measuring everything in my head that when the thing was done blending, it looked like cement in a cement mixer because it had no liquid consistency. It was completely sludge and it was to the top of the blender. So imagine a full blender. And then I would take this blender, I'd go over my sink and I'd gulp it down. And with not even tasting it, just opening my throat up and letting the thing go down my throat. And it was so much volume and it was so thick, stimulating that gag reflex that I would then have to lean over the sink like this and wait. Because if I didn't get past like 5 minutes, there was always a chance I would throw the thing up. What happened is the saliva would be running down my throat, in my mouth. And I had to try to control that, like psychologically, and sometimes I just couldn't. The whole thing would come up to the thing, and then I would make it again. I would do it again. I would not miss that shake. I would do it again, and I did this like 2 of those shakes a day. in addition to eating like 4 meals, having like 3 or 4 regular metric shakes with an ultra fuel, which is 100 grams of carbs. And I would do the ultra fuel metric shakes in the middle of the night. I would do 2 of them. So I never slept more than 3 hours without waking up and having 100 grams of carbs or 135 grams of carbs with the 38 grams of protein from the metrics. And I did this around the clock. I used to go to the diner by my house. It was a 24-hour diner in Long Island. They knew me there. I would go there and I would eat like this. It was like a big hamburger. It was like I forget what they call it. It was like a steak burger or something, but it was a burger. It was like it had to be a pound of beef. Okay, I would eat French fries with it. Sometimes I would have like a whole plate of chocolate chip pancakes, and I would eat this like at midnight. And then I'd go home and I would have another. I would still eat a shake at 2 in the morning before I went to bed. So it was no one could do. I'm telling you, no one was able to. People would look at me when they saw what I would do, because they would go out to eat with me. Maybe having, like you said, like 3 eggs and like a bagel, like 2 pancakes, and I'm having like 12 eggs and like 2 stacks of pancakes, and it was a ridiculous amount of food that I was consuming. And
I had this conversation with Rita, and I just kind of wanted to see how you deal with it. She answered it. Especially with social media now, there's a lot of trolls, and I think it's disgusting what some people say online, and I think it's terrible behavior. But nevertheless, it's something that we all have to deal with, and somebody like yourself probably has to deal with it more than the average person. How do you deal with it?
Well, I think it all comes down to what the direct statement is, after winning New York Pro, even because that had some notoriety for me for the first time, in a while. It was, you could see some comments of, why would a woman want to look like a man? Why would you want to do this or that? And
they get worse than that.
Well, yeah. But to me, I look at the comments that someone makes, that's pretty much, a chicken shit thing to say about someone that, I don't walk up on the street and start having a conversation about the way someone looks.
Right.
And, you get fit shamed, you get muscle shamed, you get fat shamed, you get gender shamed, you get all these different things on social media. And it's just, to me, it's just, I look at it and I start thinking of what's in that person's life to think it's okay to make those kind of statements to someone. And then, you look at the trolls that just want something from you, or, that are asking you for a lot of things. And, I try to be as polite as I can, because I don't want to feed the fire. People are just looking sometimes to argue. But, what I found on social media, some people are just lonely or want to be acknowledged or something. So I kind of try to put myself on another level of, this person's kind of pathetic if they're just, coming at you, coming at other people and just trying to knock you down. Some people just have, some things in their life that they get excited about and want to talk to you about it. So I just try to balance everything and say, if somebody's respectful and wants me to answer them, I try to answer as much as I can.
Sure.
Or just acknowledge someone with hey, I saw your comment. Right. And if it gets ugly or about someone else, I can deal with it with myself. But when they talk specifically about people or name people, then I try to delete them and get rid of them.
Okay. Now, do you ever have any kind of issue in public?
All the time. Well, anytime I go anywhere, but it's not usually negative. It's a lot of people will come and say, I love your arms, I love your shoulders.
That's good.
I love the way you look. And then you'll have the ones
jump right into it. Out of the blue, out of nowhere, you decided at a very, very young age, and at the top of your career as a bodybuilder, you decided just to retire. You said, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah, I have to be honest, because that's not the decision that I took. I cannot remember when I posted the video, but it was a self-reflection that I had for almost 2 years. because after the Olympia in 2018, I had decided to take a break. So during 2019, I didn't compete. I dropped a lot of weight because we decided at that time with my coach that either I was doing open because I was really heavy, or I had to shrink a little bit and stay in the 212 because it was way too much work, to drop the weight all the time for every competition. So I actually took a break, and you live a different life when you suddenly drop weight. To be honest, I've enjoyed a lot that time because I've traveled a lot, and I was doing stuff I was not doing when I was competing, like in something I can say a basic life, normal life, if we can say.
Right.
And so my mindset had tendency to change a little bit.
Sure.
And then you have a different vision on your life and also on your purpose in life. And when I tried, because I've tried in last year, I've tried to compete, and I had to stop the prep because of the COVID, because my flight was canceled.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was very difficult.
And even when I was prepping for that show, I was not really convinced of what I was doing. And I always said to myself, if I start to have some doubts, if I'm not sure about what I'm doing, especially if you want to pretend to be on the Olympia stage, it's not good. You need to wake up every morning like a fucking machine, and you need to work and think about only this. And I don't know, during that time, something happened in my head, and I just started to be not the same bodybuilder I was before when I was competing for the Olympia, because I was a machine. And no, not anymore. And that's why I said, okay, I need to think about this perception that I have, this sensation, because it's not bad, but I need to really take into consideration what I feel. And I had a lot of conversation with my coach, with many people also in the industry, with my sponsors. And then I said, okay, I have to stop. I think that's the sign, and that's the right moment to say, okay, let's do something else. Even if I'm young and I'm truly aware of my potential. I always said with my coach, I know I can be, honestly, I was sure I could be the number one day if I work hard, really. And but if the mind, if the heart, if those things are not on the same line, then I don't want to compete, honestly, because I think I have way more to offer to people than just my physique. I think I can, I do coaching, I do seminars, and I think I really want to work on this and share more what I have as a person, and not only as a bodybuilder, not only as a physique. And that's this. All those things in my head finally just made me take that decision and said, okay, I'm done.
A few years back, I always watch RX Muscle. I had Dave on a couple of weeks ago, man. Great interview. And you called it a few years back, and you said, you watch and see these Middle Eastern bodybuilders are going to come out of the woodwork.
Yes.
And you must have called that, I don't know, 8-10 years ago. I don't remember. Maybe 8 years ago. And all of a sudden, these tremendous, they're coming from, Canada and Europe, but Middle East is just producing these champion bodybuilders, like with genetics like never seen before. Why? Where'd that come from?
Okay.
And why now?
Okay. So I'll give you I'll put the politically correct answer aside, and I'll give you the truth. A couple of reasons. Number one, genetics. You said it best. Middle Eastern have the best of black, best of white. Then you got Middle Eastern. Okay, that's number one. Okay, number two, no fear of drugs. Absolutely fearless.
Okay.
Talking 60 units of insulin a day. 60.
Jesus Christ, man.
30 to 40 IUs of growth a day. Maybe 10 anadrol a day. Handful. I tell this story all the time. I'm not going to mention names, but someone, when I did a seminar, was asking me how much D-ball do I take. and I was giving milligram doses of what I take, and they didn't understand. So I'm like, well, explain to me, how much do you take? He goes, about this much.
No.
And I said, and I couldn't understand. I looked at the guy, the interpreter next to me. I'm like, I don't understand. He goes, he's telling you, he pours it in his hand and it feels right, then that's how much he takes.
Jesus Christ.
So when I hear things like that, I think to myself, okay, that's why they look the way they do. That's why they're coming up. That's why when they see, what you don't hear is what I hear. How many of them are dying per year?
Really?
Hundreds and hundreds of them are dying per year. Hundreds are dying per year. And it's just no fear. Now, the next one is accessibility. When I went to Iran and I did my seminars about 5 years ago, I had the best time in the world, and I got to see the country like nobody else. I mean, I was with the 1%ers. So I got to see the amazing side, Bugattis and fucking mansions and parties. And I saw all that stuff, you know. Every night around 2:00 in the morning, there was a pharmacy called All Star or Star something pharmacy in the middle of Tehran. All I said to the guy was, let's stop by. Sure. I will give him 10 American dollars. $10 I would give him. What do you want? Give me a 50 IUs of growth. Give me 200 milligrams of test, and give me about 10 tabs of this and blah, 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 or a strip of this.